EFA from Howard University in Washington, D.C., historically black college. And my master's degree, I kind of was burned out and shifted gears. And for my master's degree, I studied international studies and I focused on Africa and the Middle East. Did a lot of traveling for a while and up and down with my career, and now I do a lot of public art as I tackle my career. So I do a lot of public art. I'm currently working on several pieces, one for a domestic violence shelter in Portland called the Gateway Center. That's a permanent piece. Another for a garden up in Snohomish. And also I'm doing some curation work for Tacoma Housing Authority. So I have made a shift in my career to start making use of a creative technology that's available out there as I'm moving into public art that kind of necessitates using more permanent mediums and using either fabricators or other technologies to translate your work into permanent pieces. My first permanent piece of public art was a sculpture of Billy Ray Shirley at Eastside Community Center, located off of Portland and 56. As you walk into the building, there's an atrium and there's a statue of a young wearing a hoodie and baggy jeans, extending his hands towards you as they enter. So I was selected as a sculptor for that, and I had to work in conjunction with a metal foundry called Ravens, because I don't have a foundry in my backyard, and I think the HOA would have something to say about that. But it really got me interested in the process of translating my work that I had previously done in materials and mediums that wouldn't necessarily last for decades or centuries, into seeing it's like, okay, how are they actually making this, and what's the process to cast a bronze sculpture, and what does that look like? And that really ignited my interest in creative technology. And when I say creative technology, I mean laser engravers, 3D printers, UV printers, crickets, and so that you can see used on different levels. There's home crafters who are just making stuff for their family and friends, to craft markets where people are making things to sell, to businesses where they specialize in making other people's work for municipalities, like what I had to, my partnership with Two Ravens to complete the Billy Ray Shirley sculpture. So these are three pieces that I laser engraved. And it was a new laser engraver, and it just got it out of the box, and it's like, oh, what can I do with this thing? And I bought some cutting boards and watched too many YouTube videos with laser engravers making cutting boards. And so it's like, well, I want to say something more than, make something more than a cookie tray or something like that. And it was the beginning of this year, and I was, really stunned by about this time last year. I think it was March of last year. The jobs report that over 300,000 women Black women had lost their jobs or left the workforce within the first 3 months of this current administration. And that was really drawing for me because my mother worked for the federal government for 30 years. She retired from the federal government and she had a pension when she left. And it wasn't much, but it was enough to provide some stability for our family. We had a car, a house that we owned, and that even though we didn't have much, which I found out we didn't have much when I went to fill out my FAFSA form and realized and looked at the charts and stuff about financial aid and realized it was really poor. But it was enough to provide in Indiana in the 80s, enough to provide us some stability as a family. And it grieved me to see, even though I wasn't working for the federal government at the time, it grieved me to see those kind of job opportunities go away. And I was thinking about the disruption and economic hardship that I could see coming to many families of these women who had been cast out of the federal government, really cavalierly by DOJ and this administration. And later, a few months after I started working on a design about this, I got laid off from the job that I was at. And that inspired me to do the same, last hired, first fired, which is something that I've heard ever since I started working. It was kind of wisdom that was passed down, like when you're at a job place as a person of color, don't expect too much. And don't, it was more of a warning, like don't get cocky, even though I've noticed in many workplaces, there's this idea, oh, we're all friends, we're family, we're so close, we look out for each other, we take care of the team, and, everybody's supposed to do their share, make everybody feel at home. And it's like, I always had this in the back of my head, it was a warning, and I'm glad I had that warning, so I wasn't heartbroken when, for whatever reason, I was looked at as somebody who was dispensable or disposable in the workplace. So I put that into a piece of art, and I thought that was appropriate for and then I, also wrestling with the information that, Black women are statistically the most educated demographic in the country. We can collect degrees like infinity stones. and we think that is going to be a path to acceptance, to security, a key to the middle class, and elevating not only ourselves and our families, but our race as a collective, and to combat stereotypes. But we're also the most underpromoted, the most underpaid. So, I remember how proud I was getting my degrees, sitting at the graduation ceremony in the Capitol Captain garb and all that, and getting this nice fancy piece of paper that I went into debt to obtain, and spent my young years where I could have been out partying and having a good time and enjoying being young, gifted, and Black. I was in the dusty local library, researching and writing and really putting all this effort in because I didn't want to do what my grandmother did, which was, be a servant to white folks. And I saw how much my mother would get ready every morning to walk out into a snowstorm to catch the bus to work, and then retire and only have a very meager pension. Now pensions have pretty much gone away. I thought my security and my plan for the future was to get that degree, to have more qualifications, to be overqualified, to be when I walk into a room, to be taken seriously because of my credentials and my experience. And to learn that that's not easy. To have that bubble bursted for me, I think that really happened last year for me, and I'm in my mid-50s. And so I made some artwork about it. And instead of dragging somebody online or talking trash about the folks that used to work with, I decided to put all of that energy into smart one. And these are the pieces. And one of the things I like about creative technology, like laser and records and stuff, now I have these digital files, and I can make t-shirts, I can make buttons, I can turn that work into other things, and without me having to start all over with a paintbrush. And much respect to painters that used to do a lot of that. But I'm really excited now about moving into creative technology. And I started a nonprofit called, in 2022, I started a nonprofit called Swan Creek Art Academy because I saw a gap in after school and extracurricular activities that are available for youth in Tacoma. I used to be a middle school teacher for a while, in context. And when I was a middle school teacher, it was never seemed to be enough money in the budget to get all the software I wanted for the kids, or the equipment, or the gear, or the supplies, and stuff like that. And I worked for Arts Corps for a while, and they had money that they used to serve King County, primarily in Seattle. And it's like, well, we need something more like that here, serving our youth. And so I started my nonprofit. And we're currently in 2 middle schools now. And after I leave here today, I gotta go drop off some supplies to one of my instructors that's gonna be teaching kids to do some weaving today. But I'm now expanding Swan Creek to offer creative technology options, because a lot of these pieces of equipment, like the laser engraver I used to engrave these pieces, was $5,000. So that's really inaccessible for people who might want to experiment with and use technology. So I'm trying to start a makerspace where where the membership fees aren't so ridiculous that most people can't afford them. I looked into membership fees for other makerspaces, and unless it's at a library where it's free, and there's usually a hard time getting in to book enough time on a particular machine to make enough stock to go to a vendor fair to sell something. That was my experience with using the makerspace that's down at the main library here in town. There's another one in Federal Way, another one up in was it Redmond?
Bellevue.
Bellevue, okay. Yeah, those are some of the free makerspaces that are in the area. But again, there's so much demand for those free spaces. It's like, okay, well, let me write up some grants and see if we can't get enough funding to do a makerspace, another makerspace here in Tacoma, to provide these services for free. We got a Pierce County Community Needs grant. So now I'm just looking for a place for the makerspace to live that will be easily accessible for community members. And we've got several really nice, cool pieces of equipment. 3 laser engravers, a DTF printer, which is a direct-to-film printer that allows you to make your own iron-ons, heat presses, so you can iron-on designs on shirts. Some large format vinyl cutters, 3D printers, and we've got the gear, we don't need the place. And so I'm excited, but then and I also, when I go in to try to inquire about real estate, I feel there's a distinct chill. And with the loss of like the Tacoma Armory, I don't know how many of you heard that the Tacoma Armory is going up for sale. That's where we currently are, and so we're going to have to find some new gigs. And talking to real estate brokers and stuff like that, it's difficult because while we got some money from the state or the county, it's not enough to pay market rate, on 1,000 square feet, and that's kind of a shame. So I look at some of the other organizations that are much more embraced. And maybe it's just coincidence, maybe it's not. But I noticed there's specific demographics who don't have as much trouble getting access to things like rental space. And that's disheartening because what I'm trying to do is provide people access to resources that are out there. And it's frustrating that there seems to be, I'm hitting a wall. And like in my career and working for other people, it's like there's a wall that I keep hitting. And now it's more about, I don't know, it's always frustrating. So that's where my headspace is at. And part of what inspired me to create these pieces is putting my frustration into my work. And I think as Americans, we like to tell ourselves that the world is, it's a meritocracy. Well, you can have degrees in merit and all of that, but there's underlying bias and prejudices that shape how people's life experiences. And it's sad, but also an opportunity when you see the arc of how policies have changed over the last 60 years. My mother's generation was the civil rights movement. She was born in the 30s. And now that pendulum has swung back in another direction. And so it makes me wonder, the organizations that championed DEI before the current administration, they're falling in line. Makes me wonder if any of those efforts were ever genuine. But there's an opportunity for us. We know what's possible. There's opportunity for us to lean back into it. I'm just wondering, when so many of the hard-won rights that we won in the civil rights movement, if those could evaporate so quickly, then will the will be there to lean back into inclusivity and true equity. And so, yeah, putting all those emotions into my work.
A little bit about the technique. I mean, you said as an aside that you saw these videos of people actually making the cutting boards using this technology. So what is
Invested in a laser engraver that can engrave and cut wood and metal and acrylic and a bunch of other stuff. And part of learning how to use this thing, I watched a lot of videos and then think about it in a box, unpack it, and what am I gonna make? The company sends it out packaged with some sample materials you can play around with. So I blew through those really quick. And it's like, okay, well, I want to order some stuff off of Amazon and see what I can do with this thing before I'm in a classroom in front of a bunch of students. I'm going to try out some different designs. So I ordered these cutting boards, and it's okay, I'm going to stick these in here and see what I can do. And I was like, pleasantly surprised and impressed with the results. And once I nailed down my design and dialed in the right parameters on the machine, it whipped these out in like 15 minutes with one of them. But that took that took a lot of time and energy to work with it, to figure out the design, figure out the settings on the machine so I didn't catch them on fire. These pieces are coated with, they're wood underneath, obviously, and they're coated with a black paint. It's like, oh, okay, how much do I need to engrave through the paint, but not engrave through the wood, or not burn the wood, so you would be able to see the image. So it was part of the learning process for me. And I found that I was like, oh, this is really cool. I really enjoyed making stuff with these tools. So I have like 3 lasers now that will engrave on different things. I have some lasers that could cut this piece out of acrylic. This is acrylic. Others that will engrave in glass or cut paper even. So I think there's just so many interesting tools out there. And I went to art school and learned the very traditional ways of making anything. For example, I learned silk screening when I was in art school and how to silk screen a print or a shirt. Now I've got a DTF printer that, once I get my digital file together, send it to the DTF printer, it will print it out and coat it with adhesive powder and cook and bake it for me and spit it out, and it's ready to iron on a shirt. And it's like, okay, that makes it a lot more efficient and a lot less messy than a screen printer. And I see so much opportunity for self-determination. I always think about the creative economy because I've never had the luxury of being able to create art just for art's sake. It's like this has to do something. I have to be able to sell it. I have to be able to eat. Now, when I was in my 20s and going to art school, that was less of a concern. I could survive off of, a bowl of ramen noodles and, just, live in an apartment, I'm sharing with 5 roommates and we'll figure it out. But now I have a family, I have responsibilities, I have to be. So, and that requires leaning into the capitalist market and being able to produce things that someone might want to buy, or like these pieces, express my feelings through the same materials and using the same tools that I might use to make something for a market. Yes.
First of all, nice to see you again. And I was struck by these when I walked in, and I was wondering if these were yours. But I'm an HR staff manager at UW, and looking at your last hire and first fire, I kind of wish I had that for my office. So I'm glad to know that it takes about 15 minutes to create, and I look forward to maybe having an opportunity to take that and put it in my office space as a reminder. This is another woman of color. Yeah, we are the last hire, the first fire. I'm experiencing that under, you call it administration. I'm not as nice under this regime. I'm seeing that now. We're starting to get hit with having to lay people off, and often it's the lowest paid, which is usually people of color or the majority of others, and then it's also people who are relying on that income more than other people would, and it's awful. Absolutely awful. And I literally just had to educate supervisors on UW's new policy for not asking for diversity statements in staff hires today, because we are getting sued by the federal government because we are discriminating against white men when we ask for diversity statements. And so we are no longer allowed to ask for those. And it's, people need to know that's happening. The other thing is I kind of wish you could take that podium and just add a bunch of work to it.
Thank you.
Great work.
Well, and to clarify, the 15 minutes is once I put the piece all set up, I put the piece in the engraver and hit the start button.
Yeah.
Then it's working on it for 15 minutes. And I'm in the room making sure it doesn't catch on fire.
Even a print of that would be something that I could surreptitiously put in my workspace that I share with other HR people, just remind them.
No, I appreciate you.
Subtle resistance.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. And thanks for giving that perspective. That I think that for those of us who have never worked in HR, it seems very rather mysterious. And if there's, and each I've worked with Microsoft, I've worked for TPS, I've worked for nonprofits, and I think each of those workplaces had their own set of problems and issues. But one through line, I think throughout all of it, is a tendency to devalue the work, particularly of women of color. And that's sad. And really, I guess I feel like I'm getting old and crotchety. Because I'm like, I don't have the filter and the bounce back that I once did. Where I was like, shake it off and, have a nice day, I'll find something else tomorrow, whatever. That is not as easy anymore to do that. I gotta start thinking about retirement and stuff like that. So anyway, about me turning this into a good session. Yeah, so that I think that there are real realities that, for me, putting these things into something that's tangible, that's made of wood, and cutting boards, that's how you feel like you're the meat that's being served up. And your contribution, your personhood isn't valued or acknowledged when these decisions are made. Yes.
We're being told you're expendable.
Right.
I would do one that says that. Not only are you African American, but now they judge you by your age too.
Right. Yeah. So that's part of the problem with
Tell you,
Yeah. As well, as I'm getting older, I'm not 20-something anymore. I'm not young. I'm 10 years from retirement. And I start to sense the age bias coming in. And it's like, I can lean into my auntie energy, but you probably wouldn't like that. So, any other questions?
But do you have not a gallery, but you said that you're trying to find a maker space, you have a nonprofit, or is there somewhere to find you?
We're currently at the Armory, Tacoma Armory, and we're part of the ACE program, which was a program that was for small businesses and entrepreneurs to come in and use some shared space in office suites. So we're currently in that space, but with the news that the Armory came out a couple weeks ago, the Armory is going to be up for sale. And Tacoma Arts Live can continue running the space. That's a point of pressure. Like, it's not just, I'm going to leave because I found something better. No, I got to, get to moving and find another alternative. And it's frustrating also because I think arts aren't thought of as essential by many people in power. The arts can bring a community together in very unique and substantive ways. But it's often challenging to convince people in authority and power decision makers of that. So I think that's why, especially when the federal government is pulling funding and reinstating it, but they might pull it in next year, or it makes the calculus for particularly nonprofits that are depending on federal funding or even funding from other organizations that is a trickle-down theory, trickle-down effect. If the funder is having problems or cut off, then it's just a hard thing for nonprofits now. So
Evergreen.
Oh, yeah, well, Evergreen currently have some here at Evergreen, Tacoma. But we might have to move that depending on what Evergreen Olympiad decides. So, yeah, and so it's a challenge to get to a point where you have, like growing any small business, a small nonprofit has its own unique challenges. But I think that we need to reflect on the work that grassroots nonprofits are doing and look at better ways to support them. Thank you.
Have you thought about, do you do like
No, I haven't been proctor.
So they just opened their booths. Their applications for booths and stuff. I work in Proctor. I work with a lot of with festivals and stuff. Every artist I've introduced there, nobody complains compared to, like to what you're paying versus what you get. And I can tell you that there's nothing like I would love to see. It's slowly starting to pull more things in. But sometimes it's like, I just want something different. You kind of see the same pins and everything, but this has impact. It has a message. And even though, they joke around, it's like, well, Proctor is not really Tacoma, it's North Tacoma, but, they buy, and they, there might be some connections and everything there too. So I can't think of the name of the old Tacoma Power. It's close to the Proctor neighborhood. I think it's like.
Yeah, I've been to the Proctor Arts Fest before, but I never been a vendor.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I'll look for the application.
So, and if I have some information, if you have a website or something, I can just send you a link. So, because I think you need to be there.
Okay, I'll write down my email address for you.
Yeah. I think you need to be there. I think this needs to be seen.
I appreciate you. Let's see.
And also, if I hear about any, we do some stuff with, have you heard of Youth in Focus?
I have heard of that.
Yeah, so Youth in Focus, so we do a lot of stuff with them, so there's some good people that have a good board. I can reach out to them, so, I may see if I can connect you, because I think what you're doing is important, and I like your message, and I can feel some of your pain, but I can't feel it all, because we're all walking our own journey, but, but it's like, but as you add on, artists, arts, minority, female, now if you had some debilitating, disease, then that would just put you in another, that's what ends up happening. It's just, I think, what was it, Time Magazine had an article, and it was like a Jewish handicapped, LTG, person, all of these things. It's just like they were trying to look for the super minority, like that had all the things wrong, and it's just like showing how little we have
really
support.
value diversity.
So.
But yes, please reach out, and you got my name. And
and I saw,
too.
anything we can do. My coworker Tessa, we've been trying to take lunchtime, come to these, but
so it's called Youth in Focus.
So Youth in Focus is in Seattle, but I work for Museum Quality Framing, so we do custom picture framing. So we frame art, but yes, we're in the Proctor, so we're right. If you know Proctor, so right next to the Waffle Stop, across the street from that. Yeah.
You got me.
No, that's what I got.
I'm sorry.
You have to watch the call.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. worked under.
Yeah, so you know Tessa, you know, there's only a few of us there, but,
Okay.
you know,
All right.
but, yeah, but thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Network.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, you gotta reach out, you gotta look for your people.
That's what
So,
I'm
hey,
Thanks so much for coming.
thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to
On
ask.
my way to DC.
Mhm.
I was leaving my home state behind
Mhm.
for the very things